everyone. Wasn't that amazing seeing it on the big screen? Such an amazing film. And Olivia Colman just takes a layer of skin off you, doesn't she? So right now I am really thrilled to welcome a very special guest to the stage. I am Antonia Blythe, Senior Awards Editor at Deadline, and I've had the privilege of interviewing this woman before. And I would like to welcome her now, director, writer, producer, Maggie Gyllenhaal. So Maggie, so many questions. First of all, I think anyone watching this realizes this film really challenges existing expectations for women, especially around motherhood. And again, in midlife, we see Olivia playing leader without this kind of palatable, contained aspect that women are expected to adhere to. So tell me about your feelings when you first read the book.
Yeah, well, have you, how many people have read Ferrante here? Anyone? Not many, though. That's surprising, because I think she is really stunningly, searingly honest and uncompromising in her honesty about the way she writes about the experience of being a woman in the world. Not just motherhood, but including motherhood, also sexuality, also being an intellectual as a woman, an artist as a woman. Just, you know, I think so much of what she wrote down, I had not ever seen articulated before. And there's this line in the film, which is actually a quote from Simone Weil. No. Actually, I can't remember who I'm quoting, but it's Peter, my husband, says, what I'm interested in is not only what's ineffable, but what's unthought. And I'm just going to say, like, my producers are here, they've seen me do like a million Q&As. This is going to be all new material. And it's our last Q&A. So you guys have never heard me talk about this before. But I've been thinking about that because I think some of the things that she articulated, that Ferrante articulated, reading her book, and not just this book, but I've read many of her books, and it was true for all of them, were things I didn't even know I thought, things I didn't even know I felt until they were articulated, until they were written down. And that was really stunning. And that was both disturbing and comforting, because you go, oh wow, I'm not alone with these feelings that we have decided as a culture we're not allowed to talk about or even think about or even acknowledge to ourselves in some cases. So I thought, yeah, wouldn't it be kind of radical and wild and daring, instead of these truthful things, you know, being like experienced alone in our room with her brilliant books, what if we put it on a screen where all of you are sitting here together and they're actually said out loud, and you might be sitting next to your mother or your daughter or your husband, and, you know, then the cat's really out of the bag.
So you mentioned that your producers are here. From Pi Films, Talia and Osnat, they're over there.
Brilliant women.
I interviewed them, and they told me that you guys kind of collectively talked about you needing to be a director when you made the kindergarten teacher together, and that you took them to a New York bookstore and introduced them to Ferrante's writing. And so tell us about deciding to get the rights to this book, because nobody knows who Elena Ferrante is.
Yeah, she's an anonymous writer, which is important in terms of, yeah, that's what she means.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, I mean, the first part of what you're saying is that one of the things I think that was both ineffable in a way and unthought in myself for a long, long time was the really strong desire to direct. I think this is sort of a way of answering your question, but I think I didn't have models around me when I was growing up of women who were directing. There were people, there was Claire Denis and Agnes Varda, but like I was not cool enough to know about them. I did see the piano when I was about 15, and it totally blew my mind. And it was because it was in another language. It was in the language that felt feminine in some way to me. It was a language that went in like water, that I had never heard anyone talk in before. But because there weren't a lot of people like that, I thought, well, I do see examples of really interesting directorial, even storytelling, intelligent actresses. There's a whole lot of them, and that's what I'm going to do. But then once I got deep into doing that, well, always from the very beginning, I always felt like I was like always up against the edges of what I was allowed to say, what I was allowed to want, what I could do. And I thought, well, that's just how it goes as an artist. And you just use that opposition, put it back into your work, and then, I mean, I know now that I've directed that it just doesn't have to be the way it goes. But they were working with me as an actress. Well, this was even before we worked together. Once we started working together, they were like, "You're a director." Some other people were like, why don't you be quiet and do your job? But they were like, "You're a director." And really, I was just thinking about this the other day, not just because I was like, okay, yeah. Someone else said to me across the table at lunch the other day, when I mentioned to them that I had heard that they were going to direct something, a woman. She said, well, yes, one day. And I think I was a little bit like that too. And they were like, no, you're a director now. And that really gave me permission in a way to feel how urgent it was. So then, once I said, okay, let's give it a try, we went after this Ferrante book. It wasn't until after we'd shot The Kindergarten Teacher. It was the summer before it came out. Osnat, who speaks many languages, it got in touch with this. She was like speaking Italian, so the Italian publisher. She's anonymous, so we have to go through a publisher. And they said, I won't make it too long. We wanted another book of hers originally, and we went after that book, and they said, it's impossible. This book is tied up with like complicated rights issues forever. With this, it's been made into an Italian film. What about The Lost Daughter? And I hadn't read it, but I was very encouraged that they were considering this other book. And I read it in a weekend, and I was like, yes, it's the same. It's the same territory that's been turning me on. The only thing that really worried me was the age difference. That the book takes place, the book has the same kind of memory structure, a woman who's 48 and then a woman who's about 28. How do you translate that, cinematically? That's dangerous. And I didn't know how I was going to do it. And that was a real risk.
I definitely have questions about that, because we've talked about that before, and about the trust that you have to have with your audience when you present something like that. But I did want to go back to Ferrante for a second, because I believe you heard back from the publishers that she said essentially, yeah, it's yours, do what you want. And so what you ended up doing when you decided to adapt the screenplay was you did make a particular change, and you told me about this change. I think you showed the script draft to your mum, and then your friend, and they both had the same conclusion. Can you tell us a bit about that?
Yeah, so yes, Ferrante, I wrote her a letter. I told her why I wanted to do it. I told her I didn't know exactly how I was going to do it, and she gave us the rights. She then subsequently wrote this piece in The Guardian. A lot of times kind of said to me, the piece in The Guardian basically said, it's very important to her that the movie be good. and that the only way it will be good, in her opinion, is if it's mine. And that she wants to be sure that I know that that she's not putting me in any kind of a box, like the kind of boxes that she says women have been put in all of our lives. And that Guardian piece came at the same time, really basically is what you're asking me about, which is in the beginning I went through the adaptation following the structure of the book. The book is a tiny book, and it's got an excellent airtight structure, I think. And I thought, well, that's how I'll start. And I moved through it that way, kind of culling out what I felt was necessary to tell our story and what was interesting to me. And also, I realize I really don't like anything literal. But I don't ever want someone to be saying literally what they mean. I find it really not interesting. And all of the movies I like are like that. I just watched Kieslowski's The Decalogue. It's just amazing. And realized I was halfway into one of them, 30 minutes in, and I was like, wow, there's been like 3 lines of dialogue, and I totally understand what's happening in the movie. So I was doing that kind of translation. How can I tell my story and have it not ever be literal? So anyway, I follow her structure, and then I show it to my mother, who's a really wonderful screenwriter and a great teacher, and to Amy Herzog, who's also a really wonderful screenwriter who I had been working with on something else. And they both said, they both gave me the same note, which basically like blew up my screenplay, which was in the book, the reveal that she's left her children happens in the toy store scene. And so then you have to live with this woman who's done this really transgressive, aberrant thing that's caused her and you assume her family almost unbearable pain for the rest of the book. And I was really into that. And both of them were like, give me the note. And I said what I just said. No, this is why. I want you to have to live with her and it's kind of punk or whatever. And they were like, it doesn't work as infant. You have to hold it. And I think I still might have been like, fuck you. And then I realized they were right. And it just exploded my script. And it meant that all of a sudden it was on, I'd been tight, a little bit in my moving through it, and isn't it good, and, and then it just exploded, and in the pieces that were left on the floor was when I really started to come through myself. It changed so much. There are all sorts of things in the movie that aren't in the book, and there are obviously many things in the book that aren't in the film. But more than anything, I think what Ferrante asked of me started to happen, which is that I made it mine.
So obviously the cast is unbelievable. Both Olivia and Jesse, like yourself, Oscar nominated. And they're Oscar nominated for playing the same character, which is just a really special situation. I love it. But I believe Olivia came on board first, and there's some story that she tells that you got her drunk at lunch, but then you said that she got you drunk. But either way,
anybody that knows Olivia Colman knows who got who drunk.
This is correct.
I basically went home and went to sleep, got back in bed and went to sleep after our lunch. I can't party like that. But anyway, we had lunch. I really wanted her to do the movie, and I was very nervous. And she says she was nervous too, although she had all the power. I was like, please come do my film. We had a really, really great time, and she told me she would do it, which was such a relief. It was 4th of July, and Olivia was like, oh, I didn't realize it's a holiday here. Meanwhile, my kids are with my mom. They're all waiting for me to say what happened. And during that lunch, I said, let's talk about who might play you young. And I can say now, if you want, with some of my thoughts about this. Basically, I said that was the biggest risk to me. What do? Do you put makeup on someone? I've rarely seen that work. Especially in a movie that's value comes out of being totally honest with the audience. I took everything out of my film that didn't feel honest to me. I can't then put a bunch of makeup on an actress and be like, squint, it seems like she's older or whatever. So I thought, okay, I have to hire two women. And actually, isn't that a gift? Because I get 2 women to play the same part. And what I knew immediately, because I'm an actress and because I was really thinking about it from the point of view of how it would feel if it were me. I wasn't in any way going to ask these women to imitate each other. I mean, what, I'm going to tell Olivia Colman to act like Jessie Buckley or vice versa? I mean, like, that's I would be cutting their legs off, you know? And especially because I do think that there are many very good actors, and I think there are a handful of brilliant actors, and that brilliance comes in that last 3%, you know? So, plus I also thought, this is a movie for grown-ups. Unless you are 4 years old, like really, you know that these people are not the same person. And so, like, I just was like, okay, we know, but can we, just for the purposes of this movie for 2 hours, can we just agree? I'll respect you and you respect me, and we'll just agree that these two formidable, fully formed women are playing the same person. And I think not trying to fake anybody out is what makes it really believable, because we know they're different, you know? And I think the difference between Jessie and Olivia, I didn't mean this. This I realized afterward. The ways in which they're different makes the 20 years of the life that we don't see so intense, so interesting. Like, what life was that turned Jessie into Olivia?
Yeah, that scene where you see her with Paul Mescal's character, and you're just like, oh my God, what's happening? Is she hitting on him, or are they having this like crisis together? You know, and you just think she is not trying to be this perfect person. So something has happened where she's just gone, I'm not doing that anymore.
Yeah.
It's really interesting. I love that scene.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
Yeah.
But you said that every scene with Olivia, there was a surprise. And I can kind of see
With
that
all
about
of
her.
my actors. I mean, basically what I was trying to do was create a space for them where anything could happen, you know, or like heat them up and push them off in some really strange direction, and see how that played itself through the scene. And so, yes, Olivia, absolutely. And particularly, well, no, I mean, here's the thing. So yes, Olivia, I was just going to say, it was true with everyone. And like, when I wrote, I didn't write with an actor in mind. But I did have a kind of like fantasy of who each of these people were. But then, like, my fantasy of Leda could not have been more different than Olivia Colman, which again is such a gift, because then it's like who this powerhouse of an actress is, it just exponentially adds to this imaginary person that we're creating. And I would never, and again, because I spent 20 years as an actress, try to push someone into the box of whatever fantasy I had when I was alone in my room. So they all surprised me all the time. Yeah.
I just love Dakota in this as well. She's phenomenal. And her character really stayed with me too after seeing this. And I talked to Jessie and Dakota, and I was asking Jessie, what prep did you do with Olivia to play the same person? And she just looks at me and she goes, I think we had a couple of bottles of wine. I don't remember ever comparing notes. And I just thought that's so perfect that they didn't need to, because there was that life that they'd had between. It's perfect in a way.
Yeah.
So of course COVID was a bit of a spanner in the works, because you were going to shoot on the East Coast, I think, and of course you end up on Spetses, Greek island, which I think actually, you know, obviously there's not an alternative film that exists that we can compare it to, but I think it's just incredible how that kind of feeds the end result.
Yeah.
And it seems almost serendipitous that it happened.
Yeah. The first drafts of the script were set in a kind of unnamed eastern seaboard town. The book takes place in southern Italy, kind of beach near Naples. And I said it, you know, like, I don't say it, but it's kind of probably Maine, you know, boardwalk, lobster rolls, that kind of thing. a little bit gothic, you know, the way Maine kind of can be. And I won't tell you this whole long story of how we ended up in Greece. I'll try and give you the short version. Then we moved to New Jersey. Yeah, New Jersey. Yeah. I mean, it's just that Maine has a 5% tax incentive and Jersey has a 37% tax incentive. So all of a sudden they were like, "You're shooting in Jersey," and it just wasn't ever really quite right. Sorry.
Los Angeles for a long time now.
But it all happened so fast. This sort of like, well, we have our money, we can shoot it. We're going in Jersey, and I was like, okay. I don't know. And then COVID, if you remember, of course you do. At first, we thought it was a couple of weeks, and we were in prep the whole time, and we were, you know, still moving forward with Jersey. And then at some point, I had enough space to say, guys, look, first of all, the numbers in Jersey are terrible, but second of all, it was never right. And I expected to be responded to the way I was responded to as an actress. And instead I was responded to the way people respond to a director. And everybody said, okay, let's go back to the drawing board. And then we tried Rhode Island, but we couldn't get visas you know, we have French DP, Israeli producers, we have Irish actors, British actors, American actors. We couldn't get visas, so then we're like, all right, we'll try Nova Scotia, which kind of feels like Maine. Nova Scotia was like, do not come here. We don't want any of you here. And then my producer said, what about the UK? The UK's film production is getting up and running again. And I was like, I don't know how to tell a story about a British woman on vacation in England. I don't know what the milk looks like. I don't know what I don't know the details like that. And then one day I was like, I mean, literally it was like out of a dream. I was like, maybe we could do it in Greece. And then everyone was like, yes. Because of course I don't know about Greece either, but she's an outsider in the same way that I'm an outsider. So and once we even suggested it, I mean, everyone flipped out. Olivia was like, yes, please, yes, it's so much easier. You know, she's got 3 kids, you know, everyone was like, let's go to Greece, and then we couldn't be stopped. Greece has a 40% tax incentive.
I have heard from the cast though that it felt like a family, because you obviously were kind of cloistered together because of COVID, even more than usual. And I think that probably, I'm going to assume that really helped your side of things, having everyone so connected.
Well, it was my dream. I mean, part of the reason that I was upset about Jersey was that it also became like, well, everyone's going to live in New York, and then we'll just go over the bridge and we'll squint, or we'll do 10 days in Cape May, which will be, that's not what I wanted. I wanted the way I had dreamt about the sets I've worked on. I wanted it to feel like an Altman movie, I imagine, you know, where there's always dinner if you want it, you know, and that is what we had. And I realize now, you know, different things are valuable to different people. Obviously, you're going to have to make compromises. I think it feels like a compromise even to the people who are making $100 million movies, like when they don't get everything they want either, I guess. But to me, what's valuable is, first of all, an atmosphere like that, where we are all together and protected if we're going to be doing dangerous work, which we were. Even things like, you know, the flea market scene where she says she left her kids. That was a longer scene originally. And I remember I was like, we have to shoot that scene, start to finish, every take. You can't, I mean, both these actresses are so brilliant. I think this is basically a room of filmmakers. So you know that obviously often you would be asked to turn onto your mark and say, I left my kids for 3 years, you know, because that's the way the camera's set up and that's the way the lighting is. And these actresses were both very capable of doing that, but it's very limiting. And in exchange for having a whole half day to shoot that scene and getting to go through it every single time, I was like, I don't need to see the car accident. This car accident is so expensive. Like, imagine it. Whatever car accident you imagine, it's going to be better than what we could do on our budget.
That's brilliant. Okay, so just to wrap it up, I could talk to you about this for hours, but I have to let you go. But I do want to ask, I mean, Unbelievably is your debut feature. What was your biggest apprehension going in, and what are you most proud of now?
I mean, probably my biggest apprehension was just total collapse. You know, I wasn't like afraid of. I mean, yeah, I felt it's interesting. As a director, how prep was just actually incredibly valuable. You know, that every day, all day, every step of the way, you are preparing yourself for the time when you only have 12 hours and you've got to get it and whatever. So I think it was more like an irrational kind of like, just, you know, can I function? Not real, but just terror, I guess.
Exactly.
Yeah. And although I didn't feel that at all like on the ground ever, really. It was more once we were in it and like just shooting. I don't know. We really did. It was very solid, the ground underneath us. And then, what did you say? What am I most proud of? I am most proud that I really listened to myself, you know, and I got to learn what it feels like when it's me, you know, like what I really got in touch with was, ooh, something's off. Even if everyone tells me, no, it's good, or it's fine, or no, you, this is right. I was like, no. The cicadas, they're up too high in the mix.
That is classic. Well, Maggie, I just want to say congratulations on everything, and I just am so impressed by this. I can't wait to see what you do next.
Can you tell us what you're up to next, Maggie?
I don't know yet.
Oh, okay.
I'm giving myself a moment to see what sticks.
Okay.
Thank you so much for being here. Everyone, Maggie Gyllenhaal.